Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. My name is John Gregson. I look after Regenified, where's the sign? There you go, in the UK. The reason we decided to put this session on is that I've known Gabe for quite a long time now, and every time I see him, he is being interviewed by somebody. And Gabe's story is pretty well known. There's the book, there's the films, and everything else. But what a lot of people don't get to see is Gabe talking with other farmers about their journey, which I always think is the rich and interesting vein of a lot of this. You know, what's inspired other farmers who know Gabe and who've worked with Gabe to go on this regen adventure, if you like. So we've got three very brave farmers here. Gabe, you know, by the way, I am under no illusions that any of you are here to see me, okay? So let's just get that completely clear for start, you know. Yeah. These three, I don't know so much, me no. Anyway, Gabe, you know. Martin Caunce, who is a friend of mine from Lancashire. Martin was probably our first customer in the UK at Regenified, and he farms in kind of Lancashire, not far from the Lancashire coast, not actually far from where my parents farmed. And Martin is, to say the least, a regen obsessive who combines that interest with a healthy interest in AI and what that can do. And that's not artificial insemination, by the way, just to make that absolutely clear. In AI and what it can do for regen. Stuart Rogers in the middle is a dairy farmer from the West Country. He's a Duchy of Cornwall tenant. I worked for Waitrose for a long time, for sort of 25 years, and Stuart supplied Waitrose for much of that time. And I've known Stuart an awfully long time. And when Gabe came over in 2024 to speak to the Waitrose Farming Conference, we made Stuart host Gabe for a day's visit, and that's not a comfortable position for a lot of farmers to be in this stage. Anyway, so Gabe went to see Martin. Nick Padwick. Nick is an organic farmer from Norfolk. He is also a director of Wild Soils. And Nick's interest in regen is really interesting because he combines that focus on organic with an interest in regen farming too. So he's got a really interesting story. So in a moment, I'm going to hand over to Gabe, who's going to start talking to these guys. I'm sorry about the slightly weird stage layout. I apologize. I kind of hoped it would be cozy armchairs. And I think we're going to get a crackling fire picture in a minute. Because it is, yeah. There you go. Because it is supposed to be a fireside chat. Now, the only thing I would say is that I find when I watch this, weirdly, I have this as a screensaver at home sometimes. Don't ask. Just don't. It actually makes you feel quite hot. So if anybody starts to feel hot, I'm really sorry about that. And then when we've talked for about sort of 45 minutes, I'm going to wander down into the audience with the mic, and I'm going to make some of you ask questions because I think it's really important. I'm not going to ask for show of hands because that's rubbish. I'm going to pick on you. I'm going to wander down like a really bad comedy act and just wander down and pick on you. So we'll go from there. Without further ado, you're not here to see me. You're here to see Gabe and the rest of these guys speak. So, Gabe, thank you, everybody. Yep. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, John. Well, welcome, everyone. One of the things we wanted to get across tonight is there's a real interest in regen in the UK. I've been coming here now for a number of years, multiple times per year, and I can see it every time I come. More and more farmers interested in regenerative agriculture, and so we thought it'd be really good to get three individuals up here who are experienced in UK ag. Doesn't do me any good coming from the States. You need to hear from your countrymen about that. So we put together a list of questions. They're a bit varied, no particular order, but I'm going to ask the question, and then it's up to you three. Anyone can answer in any particular order. If you don't want to answer, don't feel you have to. So, number one, I won't call on anybody, but Martin, you're going to answer this. So, what first prompted you to question the way you were involved in agriculture and the conventional mindset? What prompted you to look for something else?
We'd farmed conventionally since I left school at 16, went straight onto the farm at home. We were veg growers. We did potatoes, carrots, cabbage, lettuce, leeks, and a wide range of stuff. By the time we got to the end of doing our conventional farming, as we call it, we were down to 2 crops on our farm. Everything had changed round, but we were still putting unbelievable amounts of chemicals on to rear crops. And I think that was for me, you just looked at it and thought, this can't be right. It cannot be right what we're putting on. And they were telling us to put more on every year, not less. That was the big thing for me, I think. And then when you talk, we started a website just selling wheat online. And nearly everyone you talk to asks you, what are you putting on it? And that's when you realised how much dealing direct with the public and you see what they wanted. And then that was when I realised that they didn't want us putting all these chemicals on. They just weren't getting a choice. But we could give them that choice. So that's what made me think that what we're doing is not right, really.
Very good. Stuart, I'll ask you the same question. I had the pleasure, as John said, of being on your farm. Really impressed with what you were doing, being a dairy farm. What prompted you to look at regenerative?
I think really I just wanted to challenge. We've just been doing the same thing for so many years, and it's sort of almost a bit of a calendar process. And I could see that we didn't need to do that. We weren't really trying to do it differently, and I think that's the biggest thing, is just making that decision to give something a go and not fear the outcome, because the outcome's not always necessarily going to be a negative thing. It can be a positive. And the more we kept taking things out and trying different things, we were seeing, oh, actually, this is working. We can do it. This is better. Everything's better for this. So we just kept doing that. A little bit as well, my father sort of had his way of doing it, so there's a little bit of pushback against him and trying to find sort of my own way, to do it, really, I think, so.
Very good, very good. And Nick, as an organic farmer, you are already not farming with the chemicals. What prompted you to look at regen?
Well, I suppose for me, my journey has been large-scale ag for about 20, 30 years. And the one moment I can always remember was spraying hostathion, thankfully banned now, on a beautiful summer's evening. I didn't know any better. A young man wanted to drive a tractor and spraying. And I think the following morning after spraying this hostathion, I found 3 or 4 dead hares on tracks. And I thought, this must be some sort of correlation. But in those days, working for a large company, wanted to progress, so just got on with it. And then, suppose, latterly within my career in large ag, some experiences from you guys that we were putting more and more chemical on, and we were being sold this dream that was never happening. That we would double, triple our input cost, and the yield would still be the same. And there was always a get-out clause by the people that were selling it to us as a business. So I suppose those things really started getting my mind thinking there's got to be another way. And then seeing, having a little bit to do with organic farming, I thought that these things were making positive inroads into our biodiversity, our wildlife, and my father farmed, and he hardly used any chemistry, you can always remember, and good yields or reasonable yields. When I look back now, I think he was getting 120, 130 pounds a tonne for barley. We're not far off that now. And his input costs were nothing like they are now. So I'm kind of questioning what Dad did with all the money. I'll never be able to ask him, but So I suppose those are the things that got me into doing what I'm doing now.
Very good. Staying with you, Nick. What was one thing you noticed early on that made a major impression on you when you started down the regen path?
Invertebrates. When I moved to where I am now at Ken Hill Farms and Estates with the Buskells, they allowed me to really sort of change how we farm, and we stopped using any form of insecticides. Now, I thought we had to use insecticides. Within a farming program, there has to be at least one insecticide to farm properly. And we stopped using insecticides, and we suddenly started to see these invertebrates. We were seeing more biodiversity coming onto the farm. where we would have pollen beetle on our rape up to threshold. We weren't seeing them on our rape anymore. Now, that was multiple seasons, not just a one-off, where my neighbors were spraying constantly. So, yeah, that was probably the biggest one for me.
And what positives did they bring about?
What, the...
Positives, the invertebrates, but...
Well, because we're getting more wildlife, we're getting more biodiversity on the estate. I mean, you go there now and it's just alive. The whole place is just alive. And it's been 3 or 4 years now. And, you know, it's deafening, the noise of the birds, and you see the wildlife going on the estate. So, yeah, that's been a real positive for us.
How about you, Stuart?
Yeah, so we moved, we're Duchy of Cornwall tenants, so we farmed in Oxfordshire. We moved to Dorset in 2010. When we took the farm on, there was nothing going on. It was just completely devoid of any life. The hedges were hacked to pieces. You just couldn't hear anything. When you visited last year and we sat in the garden, what could you hear the whole time?
It was alive.
And when we walk around, you know, it's sort of that farming for nature and putting nature first really then leads into wanting to change your farming system to prop up the nature and see the benefits the nature has to our system and how we can just restore what wasn't there. And it's a really quite a quick process, and I think there's quite a lot of people worried about one of the barriers is the time and succession and length of tenancies and things, but we've got quite a long tenancy. If you've got a shorter term tenancy, you can still see changes in that time. So it's still well worth getting stuck in and having a go, because 2 or 3 years, you'll start seeing 1, 2, 3 years, you'll start seeing positive changes, and you'll start appreciating and enjoying your working environment far more. So.
And with dairy cattle, what change did you notice either with them, whether it be milk production, whether it be longevity, number of lactations? What did you notice?
So, yeah, it's got a very healthy herd, and the cows do a lot of grazing, so with milk and grazing. We changed the way we manage the grazing, so I sold all our equipment that we used to have, and my father would like to go and top paddocks and make them look tidy. I sold all of that, so he couldn't do that. And then we just use the cows. They're our primary management tool. So the cows, it's costing us less to manage the cows, and they're actually doing better. So win-win, isn't it?
Yep. Martin, same question. What did you notice?
How quick you can change.
How quick you can change. I hope everybody heard that, because people, there's a lot of ideas out there that, you won't see anything for 5 years or 10 years. How many years did you take?
A year.
1 year.
1 year.
Mm-hmm. And what did you notice?
The soil.
The soil.
The soil, straight away.
What about the soil?
Well, for starters, it's there. You live 20 years of your life, and it's just something that you put your crops in. You never associate the two together. You never think that the plants are actually needing the soil to grow in. We just looked at it. It was something that we threw all the stuff at to mix it up in to get the plants to take what we put in. But when you realise that it's the plants that put the life back in the soil, if you don't give them the artificial stuff, we've stopped giving them the McDonald's, and they've got to work for their own food, and they want to. And the difference that it's made, we've taken back lettuce ground. So that's ground that's, we have peat moss, which is 15 foot deep. It's ideal lettuce ground. And it's ground that we rented out. We could make good money from renting that ground out. It was a guaranteed £400 a year for renting ground out. And there's people around us that are not farming anymore because they can earn that kind of money from it, But we put it back in. The first year that we put, put wheat on it, when we put Johnson Sue in the compost, and we put that in as an extract alongside it, and literally where we didn't put it, there was just bare white roots growing. But where the biology had got to it, it wasn't like the same soil. It was unbelievable how it changed. So if you get that in 1 year, it automatically gives you that thing to think, what can I do in 2 years? What can I do in 3 years? Mm-hmm. And it's like steps. The higher you get, the better the view, the higher you want to go. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'd say from it, yeah.
Great. Martin, are there any practices that you tried that didn't work as you expected?
I don't know. It's a different mindset. If we went out to plant, we sowed sunflowers this time, and we had 7 weeks of no rain early on in Lancashire, nothing, and were sunflower crops rubbish. Once I would have panicked, we'd have gone in, worked that up and re-sown it. This time I just look at it and I think it's going to make a hell of a cover crop though, isn't it? Because we're under-sowing it with other things as well. So we've got buckwheat, there's about 5 or 6 other things sown in there. So we don't look at it as a disaster anymore. We're soil building now for next year. So have we made, I don't think we have really, no. Nothing that I would look back and say, oh God, I can't sleep. I worry because we try new things and we're not sure if they're going to work. But we never come out and go, I'm never going to do that again. I might do it in a different way, but we'll always have a go at it. Yeah.
Very good. Stu, same question. Anything you tried?
Yeah, quite a bit's gone wrong, but yeah, we try. Yeah, I think it doesn't really stop me. You know, I see it as just to build on that and then try a bit harder next time and learn to and try and adjust and adapt and change. So yeah, it's never going to stop me. It's never going to put me off. It's always just going to be that the driver and help to really make it better next time. And you don't get that many chances. You know, if something goes wrong, you sometimes got to wait another year. You know, and the same as Martin. Last year we couldn't get some maize planted, so then we put a 6-way cover crop in and did exactly the same. And we just looked at a different benefit. You know, and it's had a far greater purpose, whereas before it would have been, we'd have tried differently to get something in, spent more money and then ended up losing. But now we sort of know we can do it. There's other options. So it's broadening the approach and that really ends up reducing risk, makes us more resilient. So the mistakes we're making have less impact because we're factoring them in. So, but it's definitely learning curves all the way.
Isn't that a bit liberating or freeing? Less stress on the mind that, hey, even though it didn't turn out as you expected, you're going to make it a learning opportunity and go on?
Yeah, and definitely. And if I know full well if something of ours doesn't work, we haven't spent the same money on it that others will have. Because you see, we go and we see crop failures and they're doing it a more conventional way, and they'll have spent a hell of a lot more money on it. So at least if we have areas that haven't quite worked, it's not going to hit us that hard, and we can adapt and evolve with it. So, yeah.
How about you, Nick?
I think the biggest thing I think I've learned, and it's a hang-up, I suppose, from conventional approach, is just overworking stuff. You still have this approach that you need to do another pass or you need to cultivate. I suppose it's kind of learning. You don't need to do this in this system. And also making sure biology is right when you're putting it on, whatever system it is, and having a bit of patience with it. I suppose, but all great learnings. Everything we do that isn't correct is just a great learning curve. And it's for me, it's about sharing those learnings with other people so they don't have to go through the time it's taken me to get to where I've got to at Ken Hill.
Yep. Next question for you, Nick. What role does diversity play, whether it be diversity of plant species, animals? What role does that play in your system?
I think that's really important, certainly on our soils. We're sands and silts with about 18% clay. So plant species is important. Cover crops, very important. We're using our tone fert to apply seeds into a standing wheat crop. So we get that, once we take that wheat off, we've got that understory straight away there. We're not having that period of where there's nothing growing. So that's important. As I said, we don't have many cows in Norfolk or animals, but we teamed up with a great shepherd. So we try and put as many sheep over, get some diversity going there. And we're looking at maybe taking some of our cows on our rewilding site and taking the youngsters and putting them on there to finish on some covers, which will help with our soils.
How diverse are your cover mixes?
Well, we've played around with many. I think we started with, I don't know, 20, 30. We're down to about 15, 20 now. But it all depends. I mean, I have different covers to do different things. I think our minimum is 6, maybe 7, maximum 15.
Very good. Stu?
Yeah, the dairy herd, just the Holstein cows, so not so much, it's an area we need to sort of look at really. There's a lot of diversity in the farm and the way we farm it, but less so with the livestock. But with a dairy herd, you get the beef calf, so we're sort of looking at how we can incorporate the beef into the system as well and run them as a separate sort of enterprise within the business. So.
How about the diversity of plant species in your paddocks? How has that changed?
Yeah, we were very much just a ryegrass, paddock, and the cows we taught the cows to graze just a single species. So we're introducing herbal lays and broadleaf species into the grazing is really interesting because now we looked at the docks and the weeds that before was a problem for us, but when we stopped focusing on them being a problem and we were focusing on what we wanted to have in the grazing for the cows have now adapted and they've learned to graze those what were sort of weeds before. And you get quite hung up on them, but really when you shift your mindset and look at something else, suddenly they're just not a problem. They're just part of the story and part of the mix. So yeah, there's a lot more going on, and we don't use any fertilizer on our grazing, and we don't use any herbicides on our grazing. We haven't for 5 or 6 years. So then now weeds just aren't a problem because the cows are doing, like I said before, the cows are the management tool. They're doing the work for us. So.
Very good. Martin, same question. What about diversity?
I'm going to say I'm glad you repeated it because I was listening to him and I forgot what your question was. Like I said, I left school in 1985 and came to the farm. We were doing probably 14 different crops on 140 acres. We had diversity then when you think about it, really. By the time we finished doing we were down to 3 crops, potatoes, carrots and lettuce, maybe some celery. And that was our rotation. And you think, that's not right, is it? And I'd like to get back into the veg side, but I talk to you Americans and you're all going, tillage, ooh, that's bad. But we're going to have to do a bit of tillage if we want to go back into that side, I think, But the cover crops, suddenly we're putting 8, 10 different cover crops in one mix, getting instant diversity in it. We're now not sowing any cereals unless they've got something else with them, whether it's just something that you're going to put in and we're not really going to harvest it. We're putting it in there. So you're thinking there's no need to ever just sow one crop or plant one crop. You can always put something else in with it, And weeds aren't always a problem. They're only a problem in our eyes. My father thinks there's a problem. If he sees a weed in a field of wheat, it's not going to work, not going to work. But that's just a mindset. That's all it is. So yeah, diversity is a big thing.
Great. Next question for you, Martin. Have you had to make difficult decisions like reducing stocking rates or yields to go regenerative?
It seemed like a difficult decision, but you're not putting the inputs in. So you're knocking it off one end, and you might be sacrificing. You are sacrificing a little bit of yield at the moment, but I honestly think over time we'll get that yield back. I've made the decision now. We're not using fungicides and we're not using pesticides. And live with it. That's all I'm going to say. If it happens, and that came about probably 10 years ago now. It was when our agronomist came and he was walking over a field for us. He was looking at weed, I think, and he came out and said, "You've got mildew." And I went, "Right, okay." And he said, "You need to spray for it." I said, "What will the advantage be?" "You'll get added yield." And he told me he said, you might lose 12%. And but the price wheat was, I think it was £108, £110 a tonne, then feed wheat. And I said, the only person that's going to win on this deal is you, isn't it, really? I'm going to get a little bit of extra yield, but I'm going to pay you £15 an acre to spray all my crops. And that was when I realised then that there's only one winner out of this, and it wasn't me at the time. You know, and then I heard that phrase, somebody said to me afterwards, who's farming the farmer? And I thought, that's what every time a rep comes in the yard, which most of them don't anymore now, is you know, you have to look at them straight away and you think, this fella is just trying to skim something on the top that I should be having, you know what I mean? And that's the way I look at it. Yeah, I'm not giving it away.
I like that, yeah. Yeah. Stu, same question. Any difficult decisions?
Good luck, Martin, because there's probably a lot of them.
Yeah, well, there's my face. I live in Lancashire. Don't bother coming unless you get an invite. That's all I can say.
Yeah, initially you sort of wonder how, because you've been on that yield treadmill, how it's going to pan out, where you might end up going. And it's a strange one because we haven't really seen too much of a dip in yield, which a lot of people, that's the first thing they're thinking about. And people are still talking in yield terms and how, you know, how that looks, you know, with strip-till maize that we do. You know, they're just not prepared to try it because they're so worried about the yield. But equally, then they're spending so much money on establishing it how they've always done it, rather than challenging it and changing it. So we've made the changes, and we're seeing the same yields, the same output from the field, but with far less cost, plus better soil health because we've got more effective cover cropping, so better nutrient cycling, better water cycling. And then just as we build the soil, everything then changes. So you need less, because you're building more, you need less to then combat the problems you get stuck in. So you're into that, trying to throw something to fix something when you don't need it. When you get off that and you work with nature and get it to, but everything functioning with you, then it just becomes a backstory of what you're trying to do. So again, it's just focusing on where you want to be and what you want to do, and everything else really just gets put to one side. If you're that focused on making that work, whatever barriers and stands in your way, you'll make that happen, I think. So,
yep. Yep. Very good.
Can you ask Nick a question?
Sure.
For me?
Go ahead, ask away.
Has your quality of your milk improved? That's probably a bad question.
Yeah,
but
you know. And this is a really good question, because ultimately it has, because we're using far less, and we should all be using less and looking to use less, because the food, you know, you are what you eat. So, you know, if our cows are healthier, the milk's producing better milk, then everybody that's buying the milk from Waitrose is, getting, it's going to be better for everyone, isn't it?
Can I just say, as a former employee of Waitrose, Stuart's milk is brilliant. All right,
I didn't know if I was allowed to say, but
you are.
I just went for it.
You are.
I'll predict, as your diversity in your paddocks increases, your milk components, milk solids, are going to increase significantly.
Yeah.
We see that. Yep. Did you have anything to add to that, Nick, or do you want a different question?
I can do whatever you like.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to ask you. What has surprised you most about the outcomes, whether it be ecological, economical, or personal?
Personally, I'm really sad I'm 59, and I find myself in this situation. I wish I was 18 again farming, because it's the best time I've ever had in agriculture.
Yeah.
Not reliant on all the inputs. As a business, we are better off because we don't worry about yield all the time. I'm just not focusing everything on yield. We're probably as profitable now as we were when we were putting on chemicals. Our soils have improved to the point where our yields now, our average wheat yield at Ken Hill was about 7.2 tonnes a hectare. We went down a dip, we're back out the other side, and I think the lowest yield we were getting when we were in conventional would have been about 4.5, and that's with a full program of fertilizers and chemicals, because of our soils being so ruined. We're now hitting 3.2, and I can see that only going up with no inputs. so I sleep easier. So yeah, it's just kind of win-win-win all the way through. Diversity, my sanity, it's enjoyable to farm, you know?
Yep. Yep.
It's great.
Stu, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the same really. I've enjoyed farming more in the last 7-8 years than I'd ever have, because before there was a lot of you just put a lot of pressure on myself to make things work, and the outcomes had to be right. But yeah, it's just everything's backed off away, and finds the enjoyment comes back, and I think that then is, you know, we then see that in the team that work on the farm, the family, everyone's just, you know, it feeds out, doesn't it? And if you're working in a stressful environment, how does that factor into the people you work with and your family? You know, if you're taking a lot of stress back from things that are influences on the farm, taking that home, you know, it's picked up and absorbed by your family, isn't it? So if you're able to set your farm up to make it work better for you and then be better for your family, that's a huge win, isn't it? So.
Martin, same question.
Sanity, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Loving what I did. I have to agree there. I learned 25 years too late. And I'm not saying the first 20 years of farming, it was brilliant. I had MSS, shiny metal syndrome. Every kid has it, don't we? But I had that big style where farming was about what the tractors that you drove and going to cereals and seeing it all there and all that. But I love what I do. I really do. I go to bed at night and I can't wait to get up in the morning. Just the fact that you can look at things in a different way and think about new ways. And there really is nobody telling you that you can't do it. Yeah. Before, you had an agronomist who would come, no, that's not on. You need to be doing it like this, you know what I mean? And I'm going to say it, my wife will go mad here because I keep saying it all the time. It is so context-based. Your farm is not your neighbour's farm. The field, this 7 acres, isn't this 11 acres. Every one is different. And you're farming again. You really feel like you're farming. You want to say something, go on.
Well, only that, don't you feel that, we farm on a coast road, right? So we get 50 million cars going every day past. Most of the trials and things I do, I put right on the side of the road. And they're failures, right?
Yeah.
Some are failures. But it gives me so much pleasure to watch those farmers go by, and you can hear them in Norfolk, the Norfolk clique, talking about how bad we are as farmers. But then slowly, I had a situation once where we had a farm meeting, and I was telling them what we're up to, and there was a bit of, don't sure this is going to work. Yeah. And they're all in a little group, and we're walking off to the next part of the field, and this farmer sort of left the group and walked up towards me. And before he asked the question, he turned around to make sure the other group weren't listening, and he wanted to go, do you reckon I could do this on my farm? He didn't want the rest of them to understand what was going on. Yeah. And that's really sad. But, slowly people are coming round, and, it's great to support other farmers on that journey, Yeah.
But the balls it took.
Sorry?
For him, the balls that it took for him to do that. And it really is that way, where we're farming almost to fit in with other farmers around us. Yeah. And you don't want to stand out. You don't want to make mistakes. Around where we are, it's a massive salad growing area. Having weed in your bed is, oh my God, they'd flip. They'd absolutely flip. And I go past fields where the lettuce, and I'm not bothered who you are, they look fantastic, don't they? They've got lines of lettuce. And then every 36 metres, there's this blank black run where they go with the thing. And I drive down them, and sometimes I think, I'm going to go and buy a little drill and come at night, sow a cover crop down the middle, so all the flowers will come up. And I'd love to do it. Yeah. And then and my friend John says, why would you want to do that? I said, because people love seeing the lettuce. But imagine a load of poppies growing down the middle, how much more they'd love that as well.
Do you know the amount of poppies we have had this year, certainly on some of our cultivated margins has been sensational.
Yeah,
Absolutely
they were there
amazing.
before, weren't they?
They were there.
They were there. They're waiting to come
They're
up.
waiting to come up. We don't use the herbicides, and they're there.
We've got fields that were pasture 70 years, 70, 60 years ago. When we took on the farm, my granddad was told, only grow pasture. That's all. It's only fit for that. Well, you tell a farmer that, and he's going to plough it up, isn't he? So he ploughed it up, and we've had crops on it ever since. We were walking in the field this year, and there were cow slips in. Where have they come from?
Yeah.
They've been there waiting to come round again. The nitrogen's gone, and they're waiting to come round. Absolutely. I talked to someone today, I think it was, is it Devil's Paintbrush I found in one field? I've never seen that. And there's none of that growing around here where we are. So it's been there waiting for us to let them come back.
And I'll tell you what we have noticed, certainly in coming out of 4A Ag in our rewilding area, but it's noticeable by animals as well. So we've got a lot of stewardship schemes, so a lot of margins taken out to make rectangles of our fields, to make it easier. And we've got this area rewilding, and we put down, we got half a dozen pigs. And we can see to a line where that stewardship was, and it's been there for 30 years, where the pigs will rootle, where that stewardship has been. They don't want to touch the rest of the field. They're not interested in that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite insane.
They can smell what's there, can't they?
Exactly.
They know what's there.
Yeah. So, Martin, next question. Where do you see your farm in 10 years?
God. I honestly, I've given over setting levels because I don't honestly know. That's what I could. What you could do in 10 years, you know, is probably. I don't know. I've come here today and I've looked around all the things, and you see what other people are doing, and you think, God, if we could do that as well, if we do that as well, where we'll be, you know. And like I say, now I'm thinking I've got to move into some alley cropping and try that and bring some more trees back in. Not necessarily around the edges because we have ditches, but through the middle of the fields, you know, with a 24-metre sprayer, which is small nowadays. But if we put a round of that in, every 48 metres, we can put some trees in, whether it's fruit trees or whatever it is, but we can put other stuff in. And you just think diversity, I don't like to think where we are. Come back, how many years did you say?
10.
10. Come back in 10 years and we'll have the conversation.
Okay.
Then. Right.
Fair enough. Stu, same question.
Yeah, so I think on the sort of cropping, we'll have really reduced or hopefully taken the little bit of fertilizer left that we use, that'll be gone. And then more mechanical termination of cover crops is where we're moving now, so to withdraw the chemical termination. But I think we're so lucky to have the Duchy of Cornwall as the landlord, so that really helps us with the agroforestry we've done. So we've teamed up and they supply the trees, which the trees then are pretty big trees. So this is in the grazing, so we've got hedges and then big oaks and hornbeams, and they're really quite big trees. So we're going to see the benefits of that a lot sooner than we would have with smaller trees. So, you know, we're just fortunate to be in that position where we can tap into that and have that. So in 10 years, they'll look really good. And that's great for our children because, you know, if we can keep the trees on the farm, you know, then as they grow up, they grow with them, you know. So I think 10 years, we've been there 14 years, nearly 15 years, so it's unrecognizable from when we moved there. And another 10 years, I think the same again. It'll be a completely different landscape again. So nice to be there and you know, be doing that really, and have that opportunity of that length of tenancy ahead of us to do that, and hopefully then our children get the opportunity to take on and resume the work we've started for them.
Great. Nick?
I think for me, it's the soil succession. So, you know, we've come a long way in the sort of 2 or 3 years we've been doing this, but I think there's still a lot more we can do. We're moving the dial quickly, but, you know, I want to be in a position where we have sort of a week of dry weather and we don't see losing tillers being an issue. So the water holding capacity of the soil, I think, is really important for us. So I think that would be the biggest driver for me still, is just to keep hard on the metal, just keep on going, making sure that we're doing all the things we need to do to improve the soil structure and the biology within the soil.
Great, great. So I'm going to ask this next question. Anyone who wants to answer it, please do. What advice would you give for a young person starting out in farming today?
Well, yeah. Ignore your parents and just sort of try. Yeah, just don't be afraid to try stuff, because if you don't try it, how do you know? And then as you try stuff, you'll figure out that it actually works. And then the people that are sort of a bit skeptical of what you're doing and have a sort of negative view of what you're doing, by trying it, you're proving that you can make it work, and then it all falls into place behind that. So, yeah, ignore anyone that, just listen to the people that are telling you the right thing. And I think coming here, it does exactly that. You know, every Groundswell, we're all here because we want to make this change and make a better world for food production. So surround yourself with people that are like-minded in that thought process. Mm-hmm. And then it all becomes easy, because you're not listening to the background noise isn't there. So you can just do it your way, and you've got help and support of everyone, you know, around you in that space. So.
I think that's really important. Certainly, being a crusty old farmer myself, I think it's really great when young people who maybe are first generation, second generation farmers who aren't clogged down by the history that we've gone through, mm-hmm. that they can follow their own path and they can really challenge why we did things in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And I've been fortunate enough to work with people like that, and it's great. It gives you then enthusiasm for them and for the future and future generations of farmers coming through.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like a 50-odd-year-old farmer? Or
no,
do you feel like a...
Physically I do.
Yeah,
mentally,
but mentally
about 18.
About 18, yeah. I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Physically and mentally. Yeah.
So just briefly, each of you, what has this journey meant to your family? Not you personally, your family.
God. Who's going first?
Who's answering that one?
Well,
go on, you started.
I think my family get to see me a little bit more, which may not be an advantage. That might be why I've been married for 37 years. I think they see me in a better place. They see me happier. And I think that means a lot to them. And obviously deep down, it means a lot to me. So I think having this opportunity to do what we're doing now with this regen movement is refreshing, and it's given me the strength to go on for another, hopefully, 20 years.
Great.
Is that all?
20 years.
20 years.
That's all I'm giving myself, Martin.
Yeah.
Just 20.
All right. My dad's 80 now, and we can't keep him off the yard.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to be. That's my aim. Still be doing it when I'm 80. I know that sounds sad, but I'm doing things now to make my life easier and hoping better when I get to 80 that I'll still want to do it and I'll still be able to do it, and it won't never be a chore, I hope.
I think if I asked my son, who's part of Wild Soils with me, I think if I said to him I was going to be with him for 20 years, I think he would he'd want to go and get another job. Would you?
Is he
5 years tops.
5 years tops. Okay, right. I've had my time, I'm away. Well, there you go, okay.
Yeah. Has he converted you, or did you convert? He's converted you. Did he convert you, or was it just the way that you were brought up with it?
Yeah, just following Dad and seeing from where he was in that conventional system, and now seeing where he is now, focusing on biology, soil health as well, is really inspiring, and is showing it on a different light as well for me. So hopefully sort of younger people coming in have got a bit more opportunity and seeing things from a different side, because we've got more science into this.
Yeah. Great. With that, John, let's open it up for questions.
Yeah, does anybody want to put the hand up to start off with before I start roaming around like a malevolent beast? There you go. No, well done. Well done. There you go. There you go. There you are, Nick. This is my friend Nick. Nick Sanford. There you go.
Hi there. Thanks very much. Nick Sanford from the Royal Countryside Fund. How much, if at all, has the availability of stewardship schemes, SFI, other grant funds helped you? And if you didn't have those, would you still be doing exactly the same thing, or would you be flexing your system accordingly?
Yeah, for us, it's an extra bonus, really, because we would be doing the same anyway. We can manage it without, the benefits are there. And we sort of made, where we balance the system, make changes, it's a change of the funding system. So really, it's trying to assume that they're not going to be there, and that as they disappear, we can't. I think you've got to get your business into a place where you're not relying on that. And that should be the primary, focus. Because if that is your one, I think there's some big changes need to be made if that's the reason that you're able to keep doing. And I think, sadly, that's the reality for many. So hopefully, making a bit of a switch to regen and seeing what can be done will help people out of a hole, and help the next generation come in. Because if there's, if you lose the next generation coming through, where do we go? How do we take it forwards then? So I think really it's, trying to make some changes and look and see and set your business up to make it better without really.
Part of our system change was due to the loss of the BPS, and we didn't want to be putting our head in the sands and silts while we waited another 3 or 4 years and the payments would run out, and then we're going to go, okay, so what are we going to do now? We wanted to use that money to support us over this period, because we didn't know what it was going to look like, and we went cold turkey. We went from a full-rate chemical system to nothing overnight. And yes, the stewardship schemes are absolutely helping us. But we will be in a position that if they were to stop, hopefully as our soils improve, it'll be an easier ride for us. So we're making hay while the sun shines, using the opportunities that the government are giving us currently, and we're very grateful for that, to help us in that system, that transition. And I would urge any other farmers, if they can, to utilise those systems to be able to make that step change, because it's a nice little gentle step change over to that system.
Very good. Very good.
Okay.
Anything, Dad?
Oh, Martin, you want to?
Yeah, I have, but I better not say. If I don't take it, they'll give it to somebody else. So why shouldn't I take it to make my farm better? I see a man 40 people coming across in a boat, and I think they're going to get it to live in a hotel, so why shouldn't I have it? So take it while it's there. That's my saying on that one.
Okay, thank you. There we go. We have another question. Well, we're in question cluster here, which is great.
Hi, Daisy Word, working in a partnership between Waitrose and the University of Reading. So there's been a lot of really interesting chat about agronomists, and I believe, I know, Stuart, I believe that you're using an independent agronomist now and have actually found that shift really helpful, or a Groundswell agronomist, if you like. And I just wondered if any of you had any advice of what your next steps might be for a farmer that's wanting to make changes in that space, or is looking for advice still, but perhaps wanting to move towards regen ag as opposed to the more conventional space. Thank you.
I think my advice to that one is wear earplugs, because we couldn't hear a word that was said. We're deaf.
Yeah,
we're deaf. This man's not, are you?
I heard it all.
You heard all that. Me and him are going, I can't hear that. The tinnitus is getting in the way. Yeah, so, no.
Yeah, so...
You answer that one then.
Well, yeah, so if you're looking to change agronomists, how and where would you go? What's the best advice for someone looking to change? So Richard Harding is in here somewhere. I don't know, I can't see him, but we moved to Richard 4 years ago and just transformed really how we looked at things. He's constantly challenging us, helping build the confidence in the ideas we have. And I think that helps really, because you need someone in your corner that's, to say when you're going to try something that's not as silly as it sounds. Yeah. We'll give it a go, or ask for forgiveness rather than permission. So I think, it's definitely helped us because we're not stuck, with the trying to get advice for something in return, the term of chemicals and inputs. So I think, it's definitely the next, today and tomorrow is the time and place to find like-minded people that will help. So
I think for me, I've kind of gone through this system where Thankfully, we don't have an agronomist,
Right.
which has been quite nice. And we're now in a position where I would go out and support other farmers on their journey. So that is really great for me, being able to, engage with them and make sure that they are given the advice from somebody who's kind of done it, and understands not only the pressures that they may be under, financial, but also the business, being a crusty old farmer. And it's for me as well, and it's something that Nicole Masters said to us, and I want to be with them for a good time, not a long time.
Yeah.
So I view my time with somebody is I'll give you everything I know, and then you just get on and do it yourself and support you. I just don't want to keep on leeching off people every year just to
Yeah,
make it drag
anyone
out.
that knows Richard will know that's his aim, is to make himself redundant.
Brilliant, and that's really great.
And you're right, because we're learning enough to, to hopefully be able to try and do it ourselves, and then, tell the story and how we do it and help give people the confidence because we've been there and done that. So
I think that's the difference. We're all in agriculture, but if you live next door to me, I wouldn't have a problem at ringing you up and saying, come in to look at this. I wouldn't dream, if I was farming normally, to ring my neighbour up next door and say to him, I'm having a problem with my wheat, will you come and look at it? You just wouldn't do it, would you? You would never do it. We share things. And I think that's the reason that regenerative agriculture has a good chance, because it's farmer-based and we're all helping each other, everyone here. My wife's gonna go mad at me again here now, but we went to cereals. It's the big, everyone here will know what cereals is. We walked in there and toilets, everything just the same. When my wife went to the toilet, she never had to queue. Never. When we were walking around, there was no women there. Honestly, I'm in here now and it's 50%, and I'm looking at, and it's partners. When we went to cereals, it was just blokes there. And you're thinking to yourself, do these people care about where they think they do? Do they care about where they live and work? Because if they do, then your wife has to care as well. And it is a family orientated thing. It becomes a family. Probably too much for me because I talk about it all the time. I think about it all the time. I don't go in at night and say, oh God, I'm glad today's over with.
And don't you think that certainly with what we're doing, I'd be very happy, Martin, I don't really know you at all, but I'd be happy to share straight away something that's gone wrong was not worked right. But certainly, as a conventional farmer, I wouldn't want to admit to any sort of failure at all. It was,
keep it under your hat, hide it at the back, But I'm not bothered. No, if people think I'm a rough farmer, I'm not bothered anymore. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's not yield, it's what's in your bank account at the end of the year. And if it's paying, it doesn't matter what other people think, I'm not in up to the bank. What is mine, that's it, I'm making it pay. If it doesn't pay, we'll try something else. But I won't go off. I'll listen to what you say, but I'll probably go, I'm going to try and prove you wrong, and I'll make it work.
Vice versa.
Yeah, that's what you'd say, But if anybody comes to me and says that doesn't work, I just think straight away, that doesn't work at your farm or the way you're doing it, but I could probably make it work in another way. So you look at ways, and I think other people have probably said it, but the biggest space to change is between your ears.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing that holds you back. If you can not be scared of thinking differently, that's your big thing, you know what I mean? And who works for Regenerative? Doug? Doug Peterson? I talked to Doug and I asked him, what's the one thing that you've noticed about all the farms you've been on? And he said, it's the amount of practices that people do just because that's what we've always done. And he said, they can't tell you a reason why. Why do you plough? Well, we've always done it. Why do you till it? We've always done it. And he said, they can't give you a reason why, and that's just because we have that view of down a narrow alley, and that's where we've got to go,
The greatest compaction on any farm is found between the ears.
Well done.
So look, everybody, thank you so much for coming. We know it's late on a Wednesday night, and we know there's beers to be drunk and food to be eaten, but we appreciate seeing all of you here. But I'd just like to say something really quickly. I know all of these guys individually. They didn't know each other before we literally met backstage, that sort of thing. So I pounced on them, and they said yes, they do this, and it's not their natural environment. So look, can you give them a huge round of applause for doing this?
Clapping you too.
Yeah.